Hello, my friends. Let's talk about recreators. I was watching Mother's Basement's video on the top 5 anime openings of 2017, and in it he spoke very highly of recreators, a reverse isekai anime where fantasy world characters are transported to the real world and confront the authors and writers which brought them into existence. This anime initially missed my vision, but Mother's Basement drew an intriguing comparison. He stated that the dry seabed imagery in the opening of Recreators was an allusion to Friedrich Nietzsche's metaphor of an open ocean symbolizing free action and possibility for the human race once it has lost the ability, or perhaps habit, of seeing essence or purpose as a predetermined absolute, particularly in the rejection of humanity's strongest conception of essentialism, the concept of God. Remember, Nietzsche is the guy who said that badass "God is dead" line. Though it is fairly likely that Nietzsche ultimately thought the loss of essentialism to be a bad thing, he also thought it was inevitable and yet not ruinous. I found Mother's Basement's connection here tenuous at best, if it were to be based solely on the potential association of a visual metaphor. Dry seabeds or deserts are used as metaphors for desolation or loss of purpose, identity, or home in a lot of works, even the Bible. And Nietzsche has so many metaphors and poetic writing in his works that you can connect nearly everything to him without trying too hard. The show even has parts that suggest other philosophers instead. For example, the treatment of the connection between the imagination to the soul's divine godlike faculty is far more reminiscent of the Islamic philosopher al-Kindi. However, Recreators is a show about absolutely created beings questioning or rejecting their authors, their gods. And that certainly sounds like Nietzsche. So let's take a look at how this show was crafted and what makes its philosophical message. If you're fresh on your Nietzschean philosophy and your German to English puns, you'll appreciate the joke I just made. From the first episode, the "God is dead" question is clearly not the connection. The "God is dead" quote is not an assertion by Nietzsche that the atheist assertion is accurate, but that society cannot sustain an accurate belief in the Christian God anymore, and that the belief will inevitably collapse. However, the fictional characters obviously can affirm and maintain belief in their authors as their gods. It also does not appear to start any commentary on the will to power because of a confusing mix of supremely violent force on the part of the fictional characters and supreme social craft control on the part of the authors. What is alluded to in episode 1 and 2 is Nietzsche's concept of the revolt of slave morality, which involves the distinction between the good versus bad morality of the ancient Greeks and the good versus evil morality of medieval and Christian philosophy. According to Nietzsche, good versus bad morality focused on individual excellence and virtue, and deciding some qualities to be worse had no issue with deciding some people to be better and thus worthy of forcing hierarchy and rule onto others. This is the morality of the authors, who create worlds and the systems that govern them, deciding who and what in those worlds are good or bad, and only concerning themselves with the excellence of their own story. Good versus evil morality is the perspective that the common person, who develops hatred and resentment to the hierarchy which inherently oppresses them, will eventually throw off the yoke of good versus bad morality. These people create the idea of altruism, the good of the common person and society as a whole, and assign as evil anything that oppresses or violates the common interest. Then, from their position of slavery to the supposed Übermenches, they revolt and throw off the oppression of the excellence-based good versus bad morality. This is the morality of the fictional characters, and directly spoken of by Altair, the mysterious girl in the military uniform, who wants to encourage the various fictional characters to find their authors and force them to change their fictional worlds. Leaving my own critiques of the efficacy of Nietzsche's historical allegory used to defend this distinction, I wonder how true Nietzsche's historical argument can hold up in a Japanese cultural context. Japan, as a long-standing collectivist culture, created both complex hierarchical society simultaneously with an altruistic concern for society and people as a whole, because the conception of self-identity is inherently defined by the collective. And this happened in Japan with nearly zero influence by any Christianity and no influence by ancient or traditional Western moralities in either case. And philosophy must ultimately use all histories as its dataset when trying to establish a meta-ethical narrative. Regardless, Recreators firmly establishes Altair as representing the revolution of the slave morality. In the second half of the series, Altair is revealed to be a creation that continues to grow in power because of the creative will of the masses, not any single Ubermensch creator. Altair is a meme, and her position of being the weaker character is further described in episode 15 when Blitz Talker explains how her weakness is something that empowers and strengthens the weak, even while simultaneously being infinitely powerful. The inverse of this is demonstrated by progressively exposing how limited the authors are by playing up personality flaws and showing their ultimate reliance on acceptance by the fandom for their final showdown plan to work. Before the climax of the show takes place, both sides have embraced the morality of the common man. This has always been a sticking point for me. Nietzsche's philosophy is 100% against this change in the moral sense of society, seeing it as weakness oppressing the strong, and using words like slavery to insult and ridicule it. Yet, were the Ubermensches actually superior people, wouldn't they be great enough to prevent the inversion of power and morality in the first place? By Nietzsche's own view, in our history, they certainly weren't able to prevent the rise of Christianity, which created this ethic. And in Recreators, the inversion of morality came fast and subtle, which is consistent with Nietzsche's genealogy of ethics. Unfortunately, for my purposes, the rest of Recreators left the philosophical competition of the story and dropped it away in order to focus on resolving the narrative in an action-packed and emotionally satisfying way. Though I did feel that Magical Slayer Mamika unfortunately foreshadowed how the resolution of the plot would take place with a series of Deus Ex Machina, and I was disappointed how they slid the rules of murder chick superpowers from getting someone to believe a lie told about another lie to make it real, to just believe the impossible hard enough. Her dialogue parts had me re-watching multiple times just to follow her rhetorical style, and was by far my favorite part of the show. But in this case, I'll leave it to you, my friends. Do you think the author's victory proved the good versus bad morality? Or did the good versus evil, the slave morality of Altair, successfully change their world? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and ring the notification bell. We don't pay anyone to advertise, so the only way we can grow our community is with your help. Thanks again, and remember, stay true. 嘘の嘘、それはくるりと裏返る。